Today on the Be the Church podcast, we're talking about the other side of sabbatical, not the people who take them, the people they leave behind. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the Be the Church podcast, where we explore what it means to truly extra be the church in today's culture. I'm Andrew, and a couple more weeks I won't have to do that truly bit anymore. Because next week, that's right, you heard it here first, next week, next Friday's episode will feature Ben the Potloff returning in all his post-sabbatical glory. It's like the second coming of Ben. Yeah, Maranatha. So yeah, Ben will be back. Until he's back, we are stuck with Max as his Camus.
This is going really well so far.
Camus United Church of the Covenant. Welcome, Max.
Hello.
For those of you, if you're a To Be the Church listener and you don't know who Max is, what's happening here? So, Max, one of our longtime cohorts here in the Northwest Gospel world. And Max, so dude, all right, next week Ben gets back. And a week from today, in fact, a week from tomorrow.
Yes.
He'll be officially back in the office. We'll record a podcast or two, and then he'll be back on next week's episode. But for now, Ben has been on sabbatical for nearly 3 months.
Yep.
And you, at the ripe age of?
27.
You're 27?
Just turned 27.
Oh my gosh. I thought you were like 25. Dude, you're getting old.
I'm feeling it.
So at the ripe age of, you have multiple progeny now. So
this is true.
That means children.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Just the blank stare. I didn't know if you knew the whole progenitor.
That's just the end of Ben's sabbatical, kind of deadness.
Yeah. Yeah, you're dead to everything. I've been dead to you for years.
Yep.
So you have been holding down the fort at 27, and you became an elder this year.
Yep, in February.
Officially in February. So Max becomes an elder at Camus, their third elder over there. And then we're like, okay, we're sending Ben away. And then you've been holding it down for 3 months, dude, and doing quite a fine job, I might add. And yeah, dude, I wanted this episode be sort of the subject, and I did warn you in advance. I think I might have said this to you yesterday or something. That
is the most heads up on a To Be the Church episode I've ever gotten.
Dude, so I'm assuming you have about 97 bullet points.
Yeah, we're talking about Ben's sabbatical. It was like, that's all I've ever asked for on the podcast.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna kind of the reflections on a sabbatical from the other side, right? Because dude, when Ben gets back, we'll be talking through stuff like, okay, Ben, what'd you learn on your sabbatical? How was it fun? And stuff like that. and he'll be like, I rested. And so that'll be that when he gets back. But dude, we never talk about the other side of the sabbatical. Like we never have episodes where it's like when I took my sabbatical a couple years ago or Nathan last year, there's never like the podcast where it's like, okay, you were the person who did all the work while this guy was pieced out. And so like, reflections from the other side. We'll call it that.
Yeah.
Sabbatical, reflections from the other side. So, dude, I don't know. That's where I want to start. What do you got?
Yeah.
So you didn't prep for
I
this.
didn't prep. No. That's what you guys always say to do. When you had texted me that saying like, we're going to talk about kind of like what you've learned, like what I've learned through this sabbatical process. The first thing that came to mind was I'm trying to think of kind of like how to frame this as like the lesson, but just like and I mentioned this in an email to you and some of the other guys, but like I've just been overwhelmingly thankful for how easy this has been.
Oh, wow.
Like not easy because like, oh, I got this, but it was just like Ben did an exceptional job setting me up for success, setting our other elder Greg up for success, the rest of our like little leadership team at Camus up for success. The pulpit was covered. I got to preach a couple of additional times, but it wasn't like I went from preaching every other month to preaching 12 times in 3 months. Like it wasn't that. And so I think as I've like reflected on that, I've been just really thankful because it was like more often than not, some of the highlights have not been like, oh, I went and did this. Like, oh, like I kind of had my shot at like running the ship and I went and did this. if anything, a lot of the highlights, like things that I've even like recorded to share with Ben, as we kind of like loop him back in and start like folding him back into like getting back into like a little bit of a state of normalcy here in the next week, it was like just the highlights of just seeing like our people doing their thing. Like I had moments this summer of kind of feeling like, oh no, like none of our members are being cared for, no one's being checked in with. And then as I would like go through our little like roster of members, it was like they're checking in with each other. Like, it's like they're like, I see these people on Sunday mornings, like they don't actually, which this isn't just like the like, let's just go with this model moving forward. But it was like, it was like our people were the church all summer. Like other leaders were the church all summer. Like, and I like had to step up in a couple areas, but it was also summer. Like, so it's like certain things do like slow down a little bit. Like we don't have any massive, especially with Ben on sabbatical, like there aren't any big initiatives happening or anything like that. And so it was just like I think that was like one of my biggest takeaways was like, I feel like I did a lot less this summer and I got to watch a lot of stuff happen. Just like being done by Greg, our other elder, who like obviously was there every step of the way, helping with stuff like in the life of the church, getting to watch like other guys who were leaning on more and more, just being like really kind of like ready, not like over eager, but just really ready to like step up and help with even like the men's breakfasts, the all church meals, the Sunday gatherings, like these different things happening. Like I could put a text out to a few people and be like, hey, has anyone heard from so-and-so? I feel like I haven't seen them in a few weeks. And it was like, oh yeah, they're in California doing this. And it was like, oh, awesome. Like, so that was really encouraging. Like at any point when I felt like this is all on my shoulders, it was all I had to do was kind of like engage with our people for 30 seconds to realize like, oh no, like this is way bigger, than anything that I'm attempting to run,
Totally. So you had mentioned at one point the advantage of multi-church. And I've been thinking a lot about multi-church lately, even going back through the book MultiChurch by Brad House and Greg Allison that came out in 2017. And we read it that year. That was the year we merged, or that was the year we started the talks. And in early 2018, actually merged with what is now Northwest Gospel Church, Camas, Washougal. And so we went from being one local church to two local churches in this multi-church interdependent relationship. And a buddy of mine had said yesterday via text, we were talking about multi-church dynamics, and he had this great line, dude. I'm going to read it here. He said, so that a healthy multi-church dynamic is interdependence. And he said, independence says, I don't need you. Dependence says, I need you. Interdependence says, I don't need you, but I choose to depend on you. I thought that was a really interesting way that he put that. I'll quote it as Josh Lane, my friend and yours. Independence says, I don't need you. Dependence says, I need you. Interdependence, I don't need you, but I choose to depend on you, right? So it's this like mutual, not codependence, but interdependence, this mutual relationship that from both sides says, we could do this on our own, but like, why don't we do this together? And so some of the advantages that you saw during this sabbatical time of the interdependence in a multi-church relationship.
Yeah. I mean, when you tell people that it's like, okay, lead guys going, I mean, you said it, like I became an elder at the beginning of this year. Was 26, just turned 27. I mean, the biggest issue with putting a 27-year-old more or less in charge for 3 months is that you've put a 27-year-old more or less in charge for 3 months, But that being said, so there's all these
more if you're an independent church, less if you're an interdependent.
Exactly. But again, it was like we were able to do that, and that wasn't like we didn't need to like on a semi-permanent basis like move a bunch of staff over to CW to help out with stuff. Like there wasn't like this overwhelming amount of administrative work. There wasn't a lot of that stuff. And I think, the multi-church thing, it was like, oh, but like, what if this happened? Like, what if there's like a legit member or leader crisis? Like something like really bad goes down. Not only, I mean, I told multiple people, like as like some of our people at the Camas Washougal campus, like very sweetly, like have checked in with me over the summer. They're like, how are you feeling? Like, are you feeling overwhelmed at all this or that? And it was like, man, if the worst possible thing happened, my first call is to Greg, our other elder. And then our first calls together are to the rest of like the East Vancouver guys. It was like, so it was like at no point, like I was never on my own, you know? And so I think that was the biggest thing was, and thankfully our church is very healthy. Like God has been just very sweet to us. Like the fact that we were even able in the position as the Camas Washougal campus being a church of like average attendance 120 on a Sunday this year, you know, it's like the fact that we could even send Ben on the sabbatical is a huge grace of God.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, for us as leaders it was like, no, there's such a support structure. Like we have these two, like, and Camas has been rolling now, like under like the NGC umbrella for 5 years, nearly 5 years, you know? And so I think, yeah, it's like there's an establishedness there to where there's just like, there's support and there was like, there was like a safety net in like a very healthy way. Again, not a safety net of like, I need that to be able to function. But it was like we were able just to kind of like send Ben on sabbatical after nearly a decade and a half of pastoral ministry. So like a very well-earned time to just like rest and recuperate. And we were just able to like move forward as a church. We had all but I got to preach 4 times in the 12 weeks. I got to preach 4 times, and 1 week was covered by a ministry connection of Ben's from Oregon, like the church that he was at previously in Oregon. And but outside of that, all of the like the preaching was done by East Vancouver guys. And so it was like there was just like it was as seamless as you could hope for, of just kind of like, yep, we're just going to keep doing ministry. Like, and I think that was, again, another highlight from that was even just, it wasn't about any one personality or anything, you know, like one personality, one guy, like, oh, and I think that's a good lesson. Not only did Ben get the opportunity to just kind of unplug and rest and like take that really proactive season of renewal with his family this summer, but it's like, even for us as a church, like I've heard from multiple people in our congregation of just like, this is a good lesson for us. Cause it's like, we don't need Ben. Like, we don't need Ben. They don't need me. Like there's no.
Whoa, shot across the bow.
Oh man.
We don't need you, Ben.
But isn't that like the healthiest possible way to actually, I mean, we've all seen it. It's like when it becomes about, whether it's a teeny tiny little church, whether it's a, you know, whatever size church in Camas, a bigger church in East Vancouver, you know, massive church in some like metropolitan area. It's like when it becomes about the guy, and that's who, like, you know, I think that was one thing that I've heard and I've seen very little from our people too. The whole like, my pastor's on sabbatical, so I'm on sabbatical this summer.
Yeah,
I've heard that from a lot of people, and people who share the same blood as me, all the way to people who I've like are meeting for the first time. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, you know, like, and so to like, that wasn't like a thought for our people. And I know that wasn't a thought for a lot of our people when you took a sabbatical, when Nathan took a sabbatical. And so it's like, that's encouraging. That's like, we get to see, like, sabbatical kind of opens up this opportunity to like see some real fruit there.
Yeah. Yeah. Where you would really expect that is when the lead guy takes a sabbatical, the guy who's the primary guy in the pulpit and those kind of things. And so yeah. And that was true here 2 years ago when I took one, that wasn't the dynamic. I mean, giving went up, attendance was super strong.
Things had never been better than when you took a 3-month break.
and then with Ben, I just actually, while you were talking there, I calculated the numbers. So Camas's attendance is up 17% this year over last year in terms of average per week, and, you know, up to almost 140 a week. And so, and the summer has been up almost 15% in attendance. So what you guys were for the year coming into the summer, like it didn't shift a whole lot in terms of that trajectory. So this summer's attendance, and I'm actually counting May, June, July, because even though May is not really summer, but those May, June, July months versus last May, June, July is up 14% from last May, June, July, 14.5%. And it just shows there's like, because you would really notice it in a church that size. And you'd probably, if you were watching the numbers closely, you'd notice it in any size church, but you'd feel it and see it, like if people really emptied out, or if people really just decided, okay, we're gonna rather than going twice a month, we're gonna, like, you know, go once every 6 weeks while the dude is out or whatever. And I remember being there the last week before Ben took a sabbatical, attending his last sermon there, and his main idea was grow up. And it was 1 Peter 2, I think, 1-5. And it was just an encouragement to the church to to grow, to like be the church as he goes on sabbatical. And it wasn't super focused on like, hey, I'm leaving, so you need to do this. It was more just, this is what we need to do. We need to continue to grow, and we need to continue to, it was really a call, I think, to the church to reflect that dynamic of making disciples, checking in with one another, kind of self-feeding, not being overly dependent on, one dude being there or whatever else. And it sounds like that's exactly what's occurred in that almost 3 months now. That's super cool. Okay, here's another thing then. So we talked about the multi-church dynamic. Another thing behind the scenes with the multi-church dynamic, like Ben is able to not only take a sabbatical, but we're able to give him a solid gift going into sabbatical, to for them to take some trips and to provide, coaching during his sabbatical. And so, as a multi-church together with shared finances, that's something that Camas at its size right now wouldn't be able to do to that degree. And we're able to do that because we're one church, and that's a cool deal too. So yeah, dude. So what else, Max? Like, what on a personal level, because the feeling, and I've tracked with you enough during this time, the weight is different when you're in the lead chair, the lead seat, if you will, than when you're not. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the American president, was it Truman? The buck stops here type of thing. Yep. I think that was Truman. I don't think that was Hoover, but it was Truman. It was Truman. Mm-hmm. The Truman Show, right? That's what that's from. Obviously. So dude, now I just got to think of a Truman Show quote to throw in, but I can't because
you don't have to.
Does anybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good night. Is that the one? No. So who quotes Truman Show? Nobody. You just did. Well, that's in the Truman Show. Okay, yeah, that is. I'm like, dude, every other Jim Carrey movie we quote vociferously, and you can look that up later. It starts with a V. Okay. Totally getting off the rails, but now all I can think is Petey Bird. Oh my God. Petey doesn't have a head. I took care of it. So anyway, that's Dumb and Dumber. But
so not the Truman Show, which is how this all started.
Yeah. So the buck stops here, and I took care of it. So the buck stops here, but that weight, that weight of like, we're still not editing anything. That weight of sitting in that chair, and you did feel that a bit. You felt that a bit probably totally. Early on and stuff. So talk about that a little bit, because you got to experience that. You're in your first year of eldership, and I mean, it's not your first year of vocational ministry. You've been doing this for years, so for years you've known the dynamic of like being in an associate type role, and then you've gotten a little bit of a feel for that. So talk about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely there. I'm very thankful that it wasn't just like, all right, Ben's gone for 12 weeks, preach 12 times, do this, do that. Like, again, my role being like, kind of like my main role on Sunday mornings being like music and stuff, just necessitated, like, I'm not going to preach 12 times. And the fact that I'm not that good at preaching yet is also a reason that I'm not going to preach 12 times. Yet. But there was that, like, when you're not the main guy, there's always that, like, fallback. Like, there's always that kind of, you're in this forward position as you're interacting with people on a Sunday morning, as you're getting those texts, as you're getting those emails, as you're having people come up to you, as you're, I mean, our churches don't really have, I don't think the whole comment card is not an issue. That whole stereotype is not really, we killed that a long time ago. People are too scared.
People are scared to do anonymous comments.
But I'm reading through Lord of the Rings, Return of the King right now, and there's this big battle scene, and there's like a bunch of description that goes into this like outer wall. Yeah. And there's a level to where it's like, I feel like as anything except for the lead guy, there's a level to where it's like, oh, I know Ben's gonna have my back, or I know if I'm like wrong, like he's gonna be the one to like, he can kind of like put me in my place and kind of like chew me out for something if I handled something poorly. Which, I mean, Ben has never chewed me out.
He hasn't.
It's a flaw of his. He's very nice, very gentle.
That's why you ran over to Camas from East Vancouver.
Like, this is super easy.
You're tired of being bullied.
Tired of crying in my office all the time. No. No, but there's a subconscious kind of like, I have this like 20-foot tall, like solid concrete wall behind me.
Yeah.
I did not feel that this summer, like where it was.
Yeah.
Again, if there was a crisis or anything, I knew that I had the support, like from all the MultiChurch stuff. It's like I knew that I had the support, and I had decades upon decades of like ministry experience that I could go like tap into,
Sure,
if needed.
Yeah.
But on Sundays, like, or in some of those, like in some of those Bible studies or the men's breakfast or whatever, it's like you get the comment and you're kind of looking over your shoulder like, Ben, please help.
Exactly.
And again, there were I can think of a number of like scenarios where it was like, I would just kill to not be the person that's going to have this meeting. I would, it's like, I would love to not have to deal with this right now because it's Sunday after the gathering. I'm exhausted, like that kind of a thing. And so, no, there definitely was. And again, I like, don't want to be like, oh, it was like the ground shifted beneath me or anything like that. But it was like, no, that was like very present there. Mm-hmm. And so I think that even gave me a bit of I think it was a very small taste of that. Like, again, not at all the full meal, but it was a very small taste of that. And it definitely opened my eyes to even like, man, like that is something that you and Ben as like the lead guys carry. That is very hard. It was like in certain moments, it was very exhausting. Again, not like it broke my spirit or anything like that, but there was just like it is nice not having to be in that position, like,
yeah, sure.
And so
cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting note, dude. Brick wall. Yeah. That's a good, especially with Ben and all his like lifting. Yeah. He's very strong.
Yeah.
He's a very strong human being.
Very.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So cool. Well, you got anything else? Any other notes on Sabbatical?
Sabbatical. Jeez.
You never heard that? I've been
No.
using Sabbatical all summer.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No other thoughts.
That's it, people. That's a wrap. The other side of Sabbatical. And dude, I probably could speak to it a little bit here with Tyler being gone. I was telling my wife even this morning how much I miss Tyler.
Yeah.
Like, he's been gone for 2 months. He's got like another month till he's back. And it's like the further we go with this, the more I'm like, I cannot function without Tyler. And there's too much 10.5 years together in the symbiosis in that dynamic. But, I don't think anything's falling apart. Cody, is anything falling apart without Tyler? It's pretty good. But I'm falling apart.
Yep.
And no.
That's why Carissa, you guys were talking about it. They came out of the bathroom with like puffy eyes.
She's
everything's fine.
Yeah. I miss Tyler. Yeah, no, it's been a bummer without both those guys here this summer. So they'll be back, and all things will be glorious. And that'll be next week on the To Be the Church podcast. We'll be welcoming Ben back, and it'll be glorious. There it is.